People who watch this channel will know that I am a huge fan of the action genre, and one of my favorites of all time is Gears of War. Mostly known for its video games about warfare and the conflict between humanity and monsters on a world called Serra that began in 2006. The premise of the games follows a soldier named Marcus Phoenix, who is tasked to lead a last-ditch effort to destroy humanoids called the Locust Horde and save humanity. Over the course of a trilogy and a prequel spin-off, he and his band of brothers go through beyond belief trials and tribulations while taking the best of bad situations, defying odds, and taking charge to accomplish their objective to win the war. The big ensemble cast of characters allowed the writing team to explore a bunch of different story ideas and predicaments, often presenting players with complex, morally ambiguous situations or characters. And for the most part, the games never really did have a happy ending. There were many gripping storylines, very good character work, or sheer emotional impact. One of the great aspects about the Gears of War games, and one of the most overlooked or underrated parts in video games, is level design. A great level can draw a player in, amplifying and highlighting the experience of what a game has to offer. The Gears of War games are fantastic examples of how a game's environment can be an effective method of storytelling. How embedding narrative elements into the very spaces or places players visit throughout the games can speak as vocally as more traditional forms of storytelling. There are so many different levels in each game that I could point to that are good, that speak volumes, or just downright fun, but the one that stands out the most, and arguably so in the entire series, is Intestinal Fortitude, the last chapter of the second act from Gears of War 2. Intestinal Fortitude is a level that has everything that makes Gears of War so great, and one of the best in the entire series. So without further delay,
let's do this.
In a brief rundown of the plot leading up to this level, the COG army is mobilizing to send forces into the depths of Serra to assault the Locust Horde directly, deploying dozens of units into the Locust tunnels known as the Hollow. Despite sustaining heavy casualties, Marcus Phoenix, Dominic Santiago, and a young trainee named Benjamin Carmine continue to search the Hollow and discover the Locust are using a giant monster called a Riftworm to sink entire cities. Marcus and Dom determine the Locusts plan to destroy the rock structures at the outskirts of Jacinto, the last major city in the COG, in hopes of sinking it into the ground. After joining up with Augustus Cole and Damon Baird, outnumbered and outgunned, Marcus calls for a King Raven extraction, but before they can be picked up, they have to fend off a large Locust attack, preventing them from retreating. Unfortunately, this also attracts the attention of the Riftworm. Managing to get on the Raven as the Riftworm devours the nearby buildings, the Raven loses stability, causing one of the members to slide out into the jaws of the monster, and Marcus and the squad are then consumed by the Riftworm. To their shock and horror, trapped inside the monster, Delta Squad decides to find their way out. However, Marcus has another idea.
No, first we kill it, then we cut our way out. What? This is what's sinking the cities. This is our chance to stop it.
And how the hell are we supposed to do that?
Rip its goddamn heart out.
What's so great about this set piece is that it stands out so distinctly from the rest of the pack. While most levels of the games in the series have you churning through wave after wave of hellish onslaughts with lots of hectic, chaotic firefights and explosions, Intestinal Fortitude is a lot of platformer-like sequences traveling throughout the interior of a living, breathing thing. This case, a giant worm. In the very start, you find that it's not so unlike what you've experienced when you started Gears of War 2. Given all the onslaught Marcus Phoenix and the rest of the cast have had to endure to get here, you would never guess you would end up inside the body of a giant monster. That happens to be one of the most genuinely shocking, unsettling, and bonkers sequences in the entire series. It's well paced, with an impeccable sense of timing, sense of scale, atmosphere, problem solving, claustrophobia, all very well put together, and even look pretty realistic. In the early stages, when you run into the Riftworm's digestive teeth that smash down rhythmically, moving through one set at a time to reach the other side, this is where this sequence begins to make itself apparent. Once you've gotten past the beginning stages and after a short cutscene, you are confined to self-contained paths and areas. As I mentioned that Gears of War's level designing is normally for being all about shooting, and more shooting, this level gives you a lot more interacting in the world, while requiring you to maneuver through uneven terrain and suspended areas to navigate through and unlock new sections. There are some fights scattered along the way to keep you trigger happy, but they mostly come down to personal choice rather than enemies you have to beat to keep things moving. Plus, you have no idea how any of this stuff works or how you're going to get out. There's an otherworldly quality to it all, which again is what makes this level unique from other chapters in the series. And combined with Epic Games' design philosophy, trusting players to find many of the details, adapt to certain reality situations, skill, and player intelligence adds more to this level's experience. What also sets Intestinal Fortitude apart is its execution. Everything about it has that extra layer of creative flair that you can't help but appreciate. You can tell a lot of work went into this level design, and it holds up to this very day. As you're moving through avoiding obstacles presented, you get the feeling that you'll be out of here in no time when things obviously take a turn for the worst for short moments that puts a lot of pressure on you. For example, once you get past the obstacles of the acid nozzles, you'll approach a dark tunnel you've got to lead your squad through, which looks easy enough. However, the tunnel splits in multiple directions, and the longer you linger, the toxic air increases to blur your vision and eventually chip away at your health, making your escape much more exhilarating, briefly entering the tunnel when you've got multiple paths to choose from to find the right way out, and the developers playing a tiny mind game with you. You have to run through as fast as possible to put an end to this segment. Once you've cut through the thick membrane, the rest are simple sawing open arteries all the way to the monster's heart chamber. However, if you don't cut all of them in time, the room will be flooded with blood and you will die. And when you beat it, you feel satisfied, exhausted, or maybe disturbed by the end. Intestinal Fortitude is one of those levels where there's a real sense of enjoyment to be had from venturing through the environment and taking in all the details. It really sticks with you afterwards, and that's mostly because it's so short-lived. The setting itself is its own entire experience, and honestly, nothing comes close to it. Every section of the stage is better than the one before, with everything ending in a satisfying yet totally disgusting conclusion, a one-of-a-kind set piece. It was also why a lot of people out there refused to play or support games like Gears of War 2 because it was too hardcore or too far apart of the gaming mainstream. In the end, it left Gears of War 2 as a masterpiece of defining proportions and a sequence that belonged in third-person shooter royalty.
Gears fans out there, and I want to warn you guys that you might want to bring a bucket because it's going to be a lot bloodier this time around.